Welcome to the Epcotian Adventure,
a podcast where we'll talk about all things Disney, but we're Epcot-centered.
including tips and tricks, festivals and favorites, and the very latest in our rankings and reviews.
But we're still old enough to remember when Mondays and Tuesdays were super quiet, because they were closed.
This is episode 75, Places to Avoid at Disney If You Hate Crowds.
Or, everyone needs a little alone time, even at Disney.
So now, please remain seated, keeping your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the podcast as we embark on our Epcotian adventure. Howdy, folks, and welcome to episode 75 of the Epcotian Adventure. I'm Rod.
And I'm Sue.
And this is a near and dear one to, I think, both Sue and I. Things to avoid at Disney if you don't like crowds.
Neither one of us likes crowds, and yet we go to Disney a couple times a year.
Yeah, we both worked at Disney, and, yes, I know, dichotomy, thy name is Rod and Sue. But, hear me out. I like going to places like Epcot, because, hey, we're Epcotian, when you can get away from the crowds.
That's one of the reasons Epcot is our favorite, because it is a lot more open, it's a lot more spread out. When you get in those little bottleneck areas, Fantasyland, we're talking to you.
Yeah, looking at you, Peter Pan and Village House.
Oh, it gets so crowded right through there, and everyone has a stroller. So this is just an episode to give you some ideas of where you might be able to experience the things you want to experience, but maybe in a little less hectic way.
It's a hard thing to find a lot of times. If you're there at the wrong time of year, on the wrong day of the week, you're going to run into crowds even at Epcot.
Yes.
So, let's talk about that a little bit. Some ways to avoid big crowds at Disney are just not going during certain times of the year.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, I mean, off-season right now has become harder to find.
I don't even know if it exists. I think it's a myth.
I think there's one Wednesday in January now, and weekdays at the end of August when it's 150,000 degrees outside.
Yes.
But other than that, yeah.
We have mentioned this before as well, but always take a look at the calendar before you plan to go, because there are calendars available on the Disney site, which will tell you what peak crowd times are estimated to be, moderate, and the less crowded days. So if that's an important thing to you, like it is to us, take a look at those calendars, because sometimes they pop up in unexpected places. Like if there's a run weekend, Run Disney, they do marathons, half marathons, 5Ks, that are all done in a single weekend, and it's crazy busy, but they do it during a quieter time. So if you're expecting it to be quiet and you end up on one of those weekends, it's a nasty surprise. So just check out those calendars for sure.
One of the best indicators of if it's going to be busy or not is look at the ticket prices. If you look at the single-day ticket prices day to day, week to week, month to month, the lower the ticket price, the lower the crowds.
It's a win-win.
Yeah, that's why Christmas is not a great time to go. July 4th, not a great time to go. But even some of the off-holiday weekends are very busy. President's Weekend, Martin Luther King Weekend.
If you look in your calendar, any of those weekends, if it's written in red in your calendar, avoid them.
Very good point. Basically, if the kids are out, they're going to be at Disney. So just think of it that way.
So that's our sort of general introduction to what we're going to be looking at. But we're going to be doing a little deep dive. We're going to get pretty granular in these things, in things that we think most people want to experience, and that some people avoid altogether because they just think it's going to be too crowded. So this is sort of our solution that we have found good ways to avoid those crowds and still get the experience that you want.
Yeah, a really good place to just start is if it's busy, you're feeling overwhelmed, you don't have something to hug or hug you, the Baymax is not with you, or Chewy, because those are really good hugs.
Those are the best ones.
Go back to your hotel. Just leave the park. I mean, I'm not saying stay away for the entire day, but leave the park. Or if you're at Magic Kingdom and you have a park hopper and the crowds are up the wall, go to Epcot.
Yeah.
Go to Animal Kingdom.
If you've got a park hopper, use it.
Yes, exactly. You'll find places at those two parks specifically, where it's not going to be as busy. If it's early in the day or later in the evening, go to Disney Springs.
Mm-hmm.
Those are great places to go to get away from the larger crowds you're going to find at Magic Kingdom and nowadays Disney's Hollywood Studios.
For sure. And you have your hotel there. You've only been sleeping in it and showering, so why not enjoy it a little bit? You paid good money for that hotel.
Well, and if you're staying at some of the nicer resorts, I'm not talking Pop Century or All Star or Art of Animation. If you're staying at the Coronado, go back and go to one of the local restaurants there at the hotel. If it's a moderate or a premium hotel or a DVC property, they're going to have their own restaurant, and guaranteed during the day, you can get lunch there, and it's going to be nice and quiet.
Yes, and cool and out of the heat. You could even change your clothes if you want to. Take your shoes off for a little bit. Not in the restaurant. Please don't do that.
No, please no. Or go dip your toes in the pool. So one of the things that a lot of people always are going to say, hey, this is the most crowded thing I've ever seen in my life. Let's just start with the big one. Fireworks at the Magic Kingdom.
Fireworks on Main Street. Who doesn't want to experience that? It's the big end of the night. It's a great way to end your day at Disney. And you have people stepping on your feet and kids in front of you and children screaming.
And 50,000 people standing in front of the castle.
Yes, and every one of them wants to be in front of you.
No, every one of them is in front of you. It doesn't matter where you're standing.
So we don't want you to miss this. It is a great, fantastic experience. I will admit I cry every single time I see Happily Ever After.
I'm just allergic to the fireworks fallout.
Yeah,
I'm not
that's
crying. I'm not crying. I'm just tearing up from allergies.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Especially when Tinkerbell flies.
We must be allergic to Tinkerbell.
That's what it is, yeah.
That is such a great moment.
I'm fine right up to that point.
So, Rod, what's our first suggestion for getting away from the crowds and still experiencing the fireworks?
Well, our favorite, we've said this before a couple times, but it's the fireworks dessert parties that exist at Magic Kingdom. There's actually 3 versions. There's one that has a pre-party with dessert, and then you get to stand in the pre-designated area. There's one with a post-party, which is dessert, and you get to stand in a pre-designated area. And then our favorite one is where you get to be all by your lonesome over at Tomorrowland Terrace at a table with nice adult beverages and chocolates and even some munchies and crunchies. And you can get there an hour before the fireworks, get a table, and be away from the crowds, and then have a fantastic view of the castle, projections, and fireworks.
And Tinkerbell flies right over you. It's pretty magical. That is by far our favorite solution, but that does cost money. So there are a couple of other options. One of them is to go all the way to the end of Main Street and stand on the steps of the train station. So this does get a little busy because other people are in on this secret. We're not the only ones who know this.
It's a cast member's favorite place.
It really is.
Yeah.
But it does get you away from the majority of the crowds. And it gets you closer to the monorail.
Yeah, so when you see Tinkerbell fly, shed a tear or two.
If you've seen the show before.
Yes. Yep.
That is key. If you've seen it before, wait at the train station, watch from the train station, and as soon as Tinkerbell goes, make a beeline for the monorail.
Yep.
If you've never seen it before, wait it out. And then when fireworks are over, go grab a treat at the confectionery, or go get some ice cream, or go ride another ride. The park's not closed because the fireworks ended.
Yeah, hop the train.
Yeah, absolutely.
The train is closed during the fireworks. I will mention this.
Yes,
because
that is true.
The train in the back area, back behind Fantasyland, Frontierland, that back area, goes through the fallout area for the fireworks. So they do stop the trains. But if you wait at the train station, as soon as the first train comes in, you can be all the way around the back of the park.
And you don't have to walk upstream. So that's nice.
Another one of our favorite places to watch the fireworks is behind the castle. You can go back behind, and they do block off parts of the area back there because of fireworks fallout, but you can get right up along the ropes and watch the fireworks from the backside. They are louder here, so if you don't like loud noises, this is not a good place to be. It is less crowded, and you do not see the projections.
Yes, that's important.
It is very important, especially if it's your first time. So I wouldn't recommend that for newcomers to the park, but for seasoned people, seasoned Epcotians, we'll go back there and watch the fireworks. And then they're also right there at Peter Pan or Small World or Mansion as the fireworks end, and you can get in line and let the crowd disperse on Main Street.
It's a truly magical time when everybody leaves down Main Street and you're not part of it. It's pretty great. And our last suggestion for fireworks, and again, this is if you've seen them before and you don't need to see those castle projections and you just want some great music and you can see the fireworks up big and beautiful in the sky, you can watch from the beach at the Poly, so the Polynesian Resort.
Polynesian Village Resort.
Polynesian
now.
Village.
They've gotten fancy.
Fancy. So they have a big old beach out there. They pipe in the music. It's a great experience. Morning, during peak times, you do have to be staying at the Poly to access their beach. But that's only during peak times, or at least that's been the case in the past. They change things occasionally, so check it out first. And you can do it with a Dole Whip.
I love that. Let's talk Disney transportation, because you've been there before, you know how busy the buses get. The monorails as well can get really packed. Well, what do you do to avoid that? We're talking Magic Kingdom. Always take the boat. Or walk over to the Poly and take their boat. A lot of people don't realize if you park at Magic Kingdom, you can go up to the TTC and go to your left to the Polynesian, go down to their dock, and take a much smaller, quieter boat directly over to Magic Kingdom.
This is not a faster option.
Definitely not faster.
But it is a beautiful walk. It's usually great weather because Florida.
If you're at one of the Magic Kingdom resorts as well, they have those small boats that will take you there. You can avoid the monorail altogether. You can either take a boat to the Magic Kingdom, or you can walk to the Magic Kingdom from the Contemporary, the Polynesian, and the Grand Floridian. Just look for the walkway signs or ask a cast member. They'll show you how to get there. You can avoid crowds completely.
Well, not completely. It's still Disney.
Well, it's still Disney. That's true.
But way better. Or if you're going from Epcot or Studios back to Pop Century or Art of Animation, you can hop on the Skyliner.
Or Caribbean Beach or Riviera as well.
That is correct. Or any of the boardwalk hotels you can also access from the Skyliner, and avoid those buses entirely. It does not go to the Magic Kingdom, and it does not go to Animal Kingdom. So don't plan on that as an escape route if those are your parks for the day.
There are also boats, or a boat, I should say. There's, multiple boats, but there's a boat route between the backside of Epcot, so International Gateway, and Hollywood Studios. A lot of people don't know that exists.
It's pretty great, too. And that definitely gets you away from the crowds, too. That's a really good tip.
And, little known fact, you can walk between those two parks. Also, by going out the International Gateway, go over towards the Boardwalk Resort and follow the signs to Hollywood Studios.
And again, beautiful walk.
It really is. It's about 20 minutes. Yeah. And it's not bad.
See, and again, it's not your faster option. If your feet are already killing you because it's the end of the day, probably not what you want to do. But if you have the time, you have the energy left, it's a really beautiful walk, and it's a great way to go. Yeah,
Skyliner is still your best route for
it's our
all
favorite.
Of that, because it's, even if it's busy and there's a long line, you're generally not packed into the Skyliners. The last and most expensive would either be Uber, Lyft, or the minivans. We've talked about these several times. These are just the shared ride services that you can use from those apps. Minivans are part of the Lyft app. They're not on the Walt Disney World site or app. There's a link to there, or they mention them, but they're part of Lyft. So just note that. It is by far the least crowded way to go, but it's also the most expensive.
So we alluded to this a moment ago, but we're just going to dig a little bit deeper here and say the Fantasyland bottleneck. This is one of our least favorite places on Disney property.
I don't know what they were thinking when they designed that part of the park, but why is it so tiny?
There's just this little tiny alleyway meant for everybody and their mom and their stroller and 16 bags for each person. Children everywhere on leashes. It's nuts.
Yeah, if you're walking through Fantasyland, this would be the left side of Fantasyland if you're coming through the castle. So the area by PhilharMagic and Peter Pan on the left, and It's a Small World and the Village House on the right. That little point right there where those all come together is just bitty walkway for some reason.
Now, if you're going to one of those locations, there's no way to avoid it. You just can't, because you have to get there. But if you're trying to get, say, from the castle to Haunted Mansion, you could go through that way to Fantasyland and be Fantasyland to Liberty Square, and it's probably your most direct route, like as the crowd flies. No, as the crow flies.
As Tinkerbell flies.
But if you want to avoid that bottleneck, you want to avoid those crowds, you can go the other way. So down the path by the castle, around through Frontierland, that whole route there, and then back around. It'll take a little longer, but it will avoid that just insane bottleneck that happens right there.
Yeah, the only time you have to really worry about that is with parades going through or a cavalcade going through, because the Liberty Square Bridge off Main Street does become part of the parade route. But generally, yeah, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Hollywood Studios, because it is the other busy park in general. And there's a couple locations there that just get really crazy busy. One of our favorites is Oga's Cantina.
Yes, that is my happy place. I love Oga's so much. I love the Ogas.
The problem is if you are a little bit of an introvert, or like us, a lot of an introvert, and you don't like being around people you don't know so much in that kind of awkward social situation, Oga's is going to make your skin crawl, because they're going to put you at a table or a stand-up like bar kind of thing with other families and people you don't know. And
that gets awkward real quick.
A little awkward.
But we do have an alternative, because as I said, it is my happy place. I love going to Oga's. So we have found some ways to make it a little more palatable. And one of those ways is to wait for the end of the night. So you do want to make a reservation here. At the end of the night, you can usually do a walk-up situation. So ask the cast members outside if they are doing a walk-up, and they can add you to the list. It's usually not a very long wait at the end of the night. And then there's 2 bonuses to this. 1, Oga's is going to be less crowded. 2, you can tell them you don't mind waiting a little bit and get an actual table, which we have done before, so that you can sit at the end of the night. You will have to wait a little bit longer, because some of the tables, like Rod said, are stand-up, which is annoying.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah. But it's worth it to, if you tell them we are willing to wait for a table, they will do that for you if they are able to. But the best thing about waiting till the end of the night is when you exit Oga's, no one is in Galaxy's Edge. You can get all of those amazing pictures with the Falcon with nobody in them. You can get them with the beautiful scenery in the marketplace, and there's nobody there. It's like the best secret ever. So don't tell anyone, because we don't want this to get out. But that is by far one of my favorite Hollywood Studios secrets.
In line with that, this is also for Disneyland, because they also have Oga's. And the walk from Disneyland, when there's nobody in the park, from all the way at the very back, all the way down to the Thunder Trail, and then through either Frontierland or Fantasyland with nobody, is magical.
That is pretty cool.
It's amazing when it's in the Disneyland kind of feel, too.
And then you can even get a castle shot with nobody in it.
Exactly. One last thing about Oga's, and most people don't realize this, you can get a reservation for park close. So if the park closes at 9:30 p.m., you can get a reservation that starts at 9:30 p.m., and I've even seen them for after that before. Those are the ones to go for.
By far. And it's worth it to stay up a little past your bedtime to go to Oga's in an empty park.
Yeah. Also, everybody already knows this one, Toy Story Land. Toy Story Land just gets crowded with lots of kids and a ton of strollers. Really, wait till after dark. I don't know any other way to put that nicely. But it's just a really good time, and it's a really cool area with all the lighting. So
yes.
Avoid Toy Story Land altogether. If you're headed to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, go left from the main entrance and head past Star Tours and go down past Muppets and go in that entrance. It just feels less crowded.
By far. And it puts you on the Rise of the Resistance side, which is helpful because that's the best thing to do, is Rise of the Resistance.
So let's hop over to Animal Kingdom. There's only one spot at Animal Kingdom that seems to get really, really, really busy, and this is the Pathway by Avatar Flight of Passage. Just note, there is a walkway that goes from Flight of Passage over behind the scenes all the way over to Africa by Festival of the Lion King. If you're not familiar with this, ask a cast member, they'll point it out. It is one of the quietest and best places to get away from that busy, busy area of Avatar.
That is such a great tip. And I'm going to say it again. It is a beautiful walk. It's so pretty. And when you're in Avatar Land, you can still hear like all the bugs in the trees, the space bugs, which is just really cool. It's just a very cool atmosphere.
Well, let's talk about restaurants, because realistically, this is where you're going to be sitting and looking at other people awkwardly, staring at your menu, hoping your food shows up so you don't have to look at anybody.
Is that just us? Is that just us?
Maybe just us. I don't know.
Anyone else out there?
A few restaurants to avoid if you don't like crowds or if you're a bit introverted. This is the interactive restaurants.
Give us an example.
Several really good ones. Whispering Canyon at Wilderness Lodge. Loud, obnoxious, can be fun, but if you're just there wanting food, don't ask for ketchup. I'll just tell you, just don't do it, because you're going to be singled out for the whole
you'll
restaurant.
Get some ketchup.
Sci-Fi Dine-In is another place. Most people don't think of this as being an introvert's worst nightmare, but if you're in the cars and there's just 2 or 3 of you, they're going to sit another family in the same car right in front or behind you.
Now, you won't be facing them, but they are directly in front of you. And
yeah.
You gave a good example here a minute ago when we were discussing this.
Yeah, if you spill your soda or your ketchup, it's going to be in the hair of the person in front of you. So yeah, not great if you don't like other people around you when you're eating. The worst, though, 50s Primetime Cafe at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Oh my heavens, I've been in this place a few times, and it's not for me. It's fun if you're there with a family, people that have not been there before, but if you're there just to eat, the family comes out to serve you. It's you're mom,
served by your cousin
grandma,
or
your
auntie.
Cousin, and they make you take your elbows off the table and make all gone with your veggies and
stand in the corner if you do something wrong.
Yeah, just don't do it. Don't do it. Now there's a nice bar there. Do the bar. Don't do the restaurant. I'm just telling you.
Now, like Rod said, for the right crowd, for the right group of people, this is a lot of fun. It can be a good time. But if you're just there with one other person and you weren't knowing what you were walking into, it literally makes me have a little bit of a panic attack just thinking about it. So what's a good alternative, Rod?
Well, good alternatives for Magic Kingdom, Skipper's Canteen. It's a really good sit-down restaurant. The Skippers will play with you as far as the menus are funny, the jokes are funny, but it's not interactive. They're not going to come around and point you out to the other guests in the restaurant. Epcot, Le Cellier is probably my favorite. It's a nice, darker, quieter environment. The tables are a little close together, but in my opinion, it's really a good alternative to the noisier, busier places like San Angel Inn, some of the other places that are really good.
San Angel is deceptive, though, because once you get into the actual restaurant part, it does feel a little peaceful because you're by the water there.
They recently expanded the space between the tables, too.
They did, and they made it a little brighter so you can actually read your menu.
Studios, Brown Derby. All day long, the Brown Derby, or the Brown Derby Lounge outside is fantastic. Animal Kingdom, Yak and Yeti is our favorite, or the Nomad Lounge outside Tiffin's.
Great place for some peace and quiet. Another restaurant, while we're talking about restaurants, that you might want to avoid back at Magic Kingdom, Cosmic Rays. Now, this is fast food. This is quick service in Tomorrowland. Famous for Sunny Eclipse crooning his songs to you as you eat your lunch. But it is very, very loud. It is very crowded. Pretty much all day long.
From the word go. Because they do breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yes. And it's one of the places that I think is most visible as far as places that you're going to see in that area. So it gets a lot of traffic. And it has good food for picky eaters. So there's that too. But here's our suggestion for how to actually do Cosmic Rays in a less chaotic manner. Mobile order. Send in one brave person to pick up your mobile order when it's ready, and then take your food to Tomorrowland Terrace.
Yeah, when you leave the restaurant, you head towards Space Mountain and then around the corner. It's actually right at the entrance of Main Street. They don't serve food most of the
It's not a restaurant anymore.
Yeah, it's where we just talked about the dessert party in the evening. During the day, there's tables galore covered. It's not air conditioned.
But shaded. And it's so nice and it's so quiet.
Some of the best restaurants that have hidden locations. Magic Kingdom, the Columbia Harbor House has an upstairs. Village House is crazy, but it has an upstairs. Look for the upstairs. That's the places to go.
It is, and people don't know that they're there for some reason. It's very strange. Or don't think that they're accessible to guests or something.
Yeah, the Electric Umbrella, may it rest in peace, at Epcot, used to have an upstairs that was one of my favorite places in all of Epcot because nobody saw the stairway. It was way off around the backside, and it was just, I loved that part, but it's gone.
That was fantastic, yeah.
It's gone in place of a Starbucks.
Speaking of Epcot, let's do one more restaurant to avoid if you don't like crowds. Now, Carly, don't come at us. We're sorry. But Beer Garden in Germany.
Yeah. One of our listeners is Carly from California. Carlton, who just shared some pictures of him and his wife at the Beer Garden. So, sorry.
And they loved it so much they went back the next day, and we love that for them. That is so much fun. But for people like us who don't enjoy the crowds, it's not our jam. And here's why. We do enjoy German food. We have German roots. But they have the Papa band up there playing. They have German dancers, and it's a whole big party. But there's only tables that are family style. So you're going to be seated. If you're there as a party of 2, you are going to be seated with a party of 6 or 2 more parties of 4 or...
And every table has a guaranteed screaming child. No idea why.
No extra charge. So as much as we do enjoy the fun of what the German restaurant has to offer, we would recommend, if you are craving those German flavors, go over to the quick service to Summerfest and grab something there and take it on the go. Or if you you're looking for something just a little bit different that you don't get at home, look at maybe Spice Road Table over in Morocco, which has some great tapas, and they have lots and lots of tables for 2 and 4.
And it's covered with ceiling fans. It's not enclosed, and so it feels more open.
Yes.
So if you're looking for something that doesn't feel enclosed like Le Cellier, where I just mentioned,
right?
I like the fact that it's a little more enclosed down there.
It's
but if
chilly
you want something,
down
there. That's the other reason I love it. Literally the basement. Spice Road Table has a full bar and great tapas.
Yes, and right on the water, you get that beautiful breeze coming off of there. Oh, it's lovely.
Character meals. Yeah, if you're there with kids, you're probably going to go to a character meal. Some of the more well-known and busy ones would be like Crystal Palace at Magic Kingdom.
Chef Mickey's at Contemporary.
Oh, that one's a nightmare. It's so loud and so crowded. And we love Contempo Cafe, which is a great quick service at the Contemporary.
Yes.
But, oh my heavens, Chef Mickey's just makes me... yeah, don't go there during breakfast. It's just the sheer volume of kids. And I mean volume. It's loud.
But if you do want to do a character breakfast and you're looking for somewhere a little quieter to do that, we would recommend, of course, our favorite Epcot. Go to Garden Grill at the Land Pavilion. It's much quieter. I'm not even going to say a little quieter. It's much quieter. You get Mickey, you get Minnie, you get Chip and Dale.
All in their little farmer's outfit, which are just so cute.
They're so adorable. I just love them. And you'll get lots of character interaction with them. Good food, good atmosphere, and so much less noise.
However, I think I can speak for Sue and I on this one. Our favorite one is Topolino's at the Riviera.
Yes.
At night, it's a very high-end restaurant, but during the morning hours, it's a character meal. It's actually one of the harder ones to get a reservation for.
It is.
But for some reason, it just feels more subdued and really, really good food.
Now, they do sing a little song, and the characters dance around, and it gets loud during those moments. But we were at a table for 2, so we were not in anyone's face. We didn't feel forced to participate in anything that we didn't want to. We met the characters because I needed to meet Minnie Mouse. But we had a great time with it, and we didn't feel like it was overwhelming and filled with noise.
It didn't feel as chaotic as Ohana at the Poly, and it didn't feel as foofy as Cinderella's Royal Table either, which those are all really great locations if you've got kids. But for Disney adults, Topolino's is the place to go.
For sure.
Tusker House. I'm going to mention that too,
because
because there's a lot of seating there. And some of that seating is off by itself. So that's another good option for Animal Kingdom.
Now that is a little bit different because Tusker House is a buffet. The other 2 we mentioned are table service. So that's a little bit different in that you do have to go through the crowds to get to the buffet and fight a little bit there. But if you're okay with that, or you have experience on cruise ships and that's just normal for you, then that one works.
There you
go. So now we're going to shift gears just a tiny bit. And instead of telling you places to avoid, we're going to tell you some places you can escape.
Look, here's something. Escape. I wonder what that means. It's funny. It's spelled just like the word escape.
So these are all places we've gone park by park to give you some ideas of when you just need that minute to yourself and you don't want to go back to your hotel. You don't want to take time away from everything. You still want to be in the park, but these are places that you can get away that are just allow you to think for a few minutes.
So this is good for Disney adults, introverts, and if you're there with anybody with sensory issues.
Yes.
These are great places to get away. Now, these are not quiet rooms. You're not going to get completely out of the parks in these locations, for the most part. But let's talk about Magic Kingdom, because that is by far the most chaotic of the parks.
By far. So our first suggestion is we're going to actually give you a couple attractions that you can do and avoid some crowds. So the first suggestion is going to be the Liberty Bell. This is the steamboat that goes on the rivers of America out of Liberty Square. And how long does it run, Rod?
It runs just under 20 minutes.
About 20 minutes? Okay.
It runs in 30-minute cycles. So it's usually boarding and unloading for about 10 and on the river for about 20.
Perfect. So you get 20 minutes of nice, quiet. There's places to sit in the middle section. You can go all the way up to the top deck, and there's usually not many people up there. There's shade. There's a breeze. You're on the water. It's really, really lovely. So that is our first suggestion. Rod, what's next?
Tom Sawyer Island. So take the rafts from over in front of Tiana's and Thunder Mountain over to Tom Sawyer Island. And there's areas over in the fort that are a lot less traveled and a little more quiet. There's not a lot of seating areas on the island. There are some benches, of course, around the pathways. But you can usually, even on a busy day, go over there and just kind of get away from it all. It's just kind of a nice, quiet spot in the middle of the chaos that is the Magic Kingdom.
Very nice. Next is another one of our very favorite attractions. We use this as an escape all the time. And a day isn't complete without going on this one. And this is the People Mover. So the People Mover is one of our favorites. It's found at Tomorrowland. It is a slow-moving ride vehicle.
Like a transportation of the near-distant past future.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yes. But it'll give you a little tour of Tomorrowland from the highway in the sky up there, and you can see all the people without interacting with all the people.
It's so nice.
One of our favorites is when there's only 2 or 3 of you, you can put your feet up, which is just lovely after being in the Magic Kingdom all day. If you happen to catch it during fireworks, just a beautiful experience. Coming around that corner and seeing the castle any time of day is great. I can't hype this one enough. It is the perfect midday escape.
Hop the train. 3 train stations, no waiting, or even if it is waiting. The train itself will get you out of the park, seated, and just a nice little slow respite as well without having to be around it. Now, you're going to be seated next to people. But in general, it's still a less chaotic type of atmosphere than most of the attractions.
That's a great one. So next up, we're going to suggest a little place that for some reason gets overlooked all the time and in a glorious way when you need a place to settle down. So between Frontierland and Liberty Square, there is a shop called the Christmas Shop.
Ye old Christmas shop.
Ye old Christmas shop. This is the place to buy ornaments year-round. You can get them personalized. It's great. But right outside that shop is a lovely bench in the shade in its own little alcove. And for some reason, there's never anyone on this bench.
It's like one of the most ignored places in the entire park. It's right behind Sleepy Hollow. If you're used to going in and getting your waffles, which have changed now. We're not going to get into that.
I can't believe they did that.
Why would you do that, Disney?
So angry.
Please, bring them back.
Really?
But
really,
right
Disney?
behind that area is just a beautiful, quiet area, even on the busiest of days. Well, the next of those busy parks is going to be Disney's Hollywood Studios. There's quite a few places here, too, but one of our favorite locations is, while it's still there, One Man's Dream, the Walt Disney Presents Museum. and theater. Most people don't even realize that. They'll go in, look at the stuff, and come right back out the front entrance. If you go all the way to the back, there's a previews theater back there that will most of the time show you an upcoming trailer or teaser of the new film coming out. Usually not very crowded. It's nice and quiet and air-conditioned, and it exits out right by Launch Bay. It's one of my favorite places.
And when it's not showing a teaser for a coming film, it's going to show One Man's Dream, which is the story of Walt and starting Disney. And it's narrated by Julie Andrews, and it is absolutely a treasure. It will get you off your feet for a few minutes into this nice, peaceful, quiet atmosphere. But the whole museum is really, really nice.
And that is entered from if you're looking at the main entrance for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, look to your right, and you'll see Animation Courtyard. And the Little Mermaid entrance, walk down that walkway like you're headed towards Toy Story, and you'll see One Man's Dream right there.
Hey, while we're talking about Animation Courtyard, let's just stay right there for a second, and I'm going to talk about Launch Bay. Launch
Bay is the Star Wars haven.
It's all the way to the back of that courtyard. And it is where you will find movie props from the films. You'll find costumes. You'll find trivia and characters. This is where you can meet Chewie, get that best hug ever.
The Chewie hugs are the best. And it's the real Chewie.
Oh, absolutely.
I asked a cast member. It's the real Chewie.
Sometimes he goes over to Galaxy's Edge. He takes a short flight. It's hyperspace, so he can get there quickly. It's fine.
And he's at Disneyland sometimes. I think he's out there on holiday most of the time. But yeah.
Once in a while. But mostly he's there to give you hugs in the launch bay. But you can also, be on the lookout because you can get arrested by stormtroopers and taken to Kylo Ren. Mm-hmm. It's a little intimidating. And you can meet Darth Vader here. You can meet BB-8. It is so much fun. And it's a great place because it is so out of the way and it is more of a niche audience. It doesn't get the crowds. So take a look through there, especially if you're a Star Wars fan. But if you're in that area and you just need a break from people, hop on in there. It's a great place.
Muppets 3D over on the other side of the park is, again, a great place to get out of the heat, see one of the best pre-shows, as you heard us talk about just a couple episodes ago, and for about 12 minutes, laugh your tushy off, because it's really, really fun. Or if you do the pre-show and the attraction, you can be a half an hour in the air conditioning.
Air conditioning and away from crowds.
Away from crowds, yeah.
And the last one at Hollywood Studio is the Joffrey's Cart. Now, that's a weird thing to suggest to get away from a crowd. But as you are exiting Tower of Terror, there's a lovely gift shop, and right outside that gift shop is a Joffrey's Cart. And I guarantee there's a guy just waiting to make you a cup of coffee, because for some reason people walk right past it. This is also a treasure if you are getting ready to go into Fantasmic, because it's right there. So
most people don't know it's there.
But that whole area is just quiet all day long. It's so beautiful. And coffee. So get your shaky Jamaica and have a nice sit down in the shade. It's beautiful.
Over at Animal Kingdom, well, we talked about a couple places already, but another really great one that is really just overlooked is the Tree of Life pathway.
If you can't find the path, it can be tricky to locate because it kind of coincides for a little bit with the queue for Tough to Be a Bug. Don't get caught in that queue.
Soon to be Zootopia.
Yay! But just ask a cast member, because there's usually one posted right there. And just ask them how to get down to the water without going in the attraction. And they'll point it out to you. And it is lovely. And you can get nice close-up images of some of those animals. Oh, so neat.
Speaking of water, there's a huge seating area for Flame Tree Barbecue that nobody ever sees, nobody ever finds, and nobody's ever at. And let me tell you, if you want to just take some food from one of the walk-ups, including Flame Tree or Yak and Yeti...
Flame Tree's actually really good.
Oh, it is fantastic. But Kamal's Fries, any of the... Mr. Kamal's, walk back here and sit down, and you'll be not always by yourself, but you're going to be in a very low-crowded area of the park.
Now, there is seating right next to Flame Tree that gets very, very busy. Just keep walking down the path. It goes down for 4 or 5 levels.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Crazy. It goes all the way to the water.
It's like, if you've been to other parks, like a Six Flags, this looks like one of those areas where they hold picnics.
Yeah, seriously.
It's that big.
Yeah, it just keeps going. So as long as there's pathway, just keep walking, and you'll find a great place with nobody at it.
We already mentioned Nomad Lounge, but I'm going to mention it again.
We should mention
Nomad
it again.
Lounge, and get the Night Monkey. Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Now, we love sitting on the patio. We also have word recently, again from our friend Carlton and his wife, who got to sit inside at Nomad Lounge and said it was absolutely lovely in there.
The train to Rafiki's Planet Watch also is really overlooked, and that whole back area back there, there's no stores, there's no restaurants, but there's a nice little petting zoo where you can give scritchy scratchies to the goats and
the piggies.
Learn how to draw Mickey Mouse. But it's also a area that is really often overlooked, and it's a very easy place to get away to.
And you get a nice little train ride.
Yeah, that's true. Two of the most overlooked places, though, are two of our favorites. And
these are the animal trails.
Yeah.
These are walking trails. One of them is Gorilla Falls, and that takes you to see the gorillas.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is the Maharaja Jungle Trek. That one's actually my personal favorite. They're both really, really beautiful, worth your time experiences. You're at Animal Kingdom to see the animals. Go see the animals. But Maharaja Jungle Trek is beautiful, and it goes by the tigers, and they are so majestic and so gorgeous. And I highly recommend checking these out while you're there.
Well, what would the Epcotian adventure be without talking about Epcot? So let's talk about Epcot. And, of course, attractions, Spaceship Earth.
Yes.
Living with the Land.
Yes.
Nemo. These are all just quieter, less energetic attractions that generally don't have long lines and just great places to get out of the heat.
It's true. You're not going to go wrong with any of those that you just mentioned, and it'll get you away from the crowds for a little bit. I love it. Another place that we have talked about several times, but I just cannot mention enough, is the House of Fez. And this is back in the Morocco Pavilion, all the way towards the back if you're walking towards, past the fountain. And then on your left, you're going to find a little archway, a doorway. And in there, I'm actually going to, if I can remember to do it, I've gotten so bad at this. I'm old, folks. But if I can remember to do it, I'm going to post a little video I took the last time we were there that just scans around the House of Fez. It's a little courtyard type space. There's no roof, but there's benches all the way around the walls. It's peaceful. It's quiet. It is absolutely stunning. It is so gorgeous, and you would never know you're inside a theme park.
One of my favorites, too, is down by that restaurant I just talked about, Le Cellier at Canada. If you walk down the pathway towards Le Cellier through the gardens, there's a path that leads from there over to Canada Far and Wide. And it's just a nice little boardwalk past a waterfall. It's peaceful, it's quiet, and it's wet. I don't generally love getting wet in theme parks, but this is a nice just spritz.
Yeah, you're not going to get drenched. It's just a nice little spritz as you walk by.
My favorite part, though, is the waterfall is just loud enough to make it a white noise. And it is actually one of the most peaceful places in all of Walt Disney World, in my opinion.
Agreed. By far agreed, yes. Another place would be over in China. If you're looking at the pavilion, on your right-hand side is a bridge, and just beyond that, there's a little peaceful nook. And once upon a time, Mulan would do meet and greets over in that area. She now meets inside the pavilion, so this area is just sort of set aside. But it's peaceful, it's quiet, it's at a great place as you're headed around World Showcase to just stop and get a breath for a second. And it's beautiful. All of these that we're mentioning, they're not just peaceful, they're just really nice places to be. Yeah,
and that's hard to find sometimes in a theme park. Epcot actually is full of these locations, and the last couple locations are all part of World Celebration. There's Celebration Plaza, of course, that just opened with the Walt the Dreamer statue. It's not really shaded, but it's usually fairly quiet still.
Yeah, it's nice and quiet. There's places to charge your phone. There's places to sit down. I don't know why they didn't put in some shade. It just boggles my mind.
Well, maybe the trees will grow up.
Maybe eventually. So go in 20 years, and it'll be perfect.
Over by Imagination, you have an entire area just off to the right of the attraction with the best restrooms in the entire park.
We have talked about these before as well, but there are also benches back there.
Mm-hmm. And then the left-hand side of that pavilion is the Pixar Shorts Theater, the old Captain EO Theater, or if you're really old like us, the old Magic Journeys Theater. You can get in there and sit down in a nice shaded area for about 20 minutes in a kind of a 3D Pixar short film fest. But it's always very quiet, very cool.
So these are some of our favorite places to get away. We'd love to know what yours are. Or if this isn't an issue for you and you're like, what are you talking about? We love crowds. Maybe that's your jam. I don't know.
Then you're weird. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, folks, before we go, we'd like to give a big thank you to our theme music composer, Jason Patrick Rowan, whose music is licensed to Pond 5. And, of course, thank you, Phoenicians.
Thank you, Phoenicians. And don't forget to rate, review, like, share, and subscribe. It really does help other people find us. You can find us on social media on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts.
The Epcotian Adventure is a $1,000 brunch production and a proud gold member of D23. Thanks for joining us today for episode 75 of the Epcotian Adventure. I'm Rod.
And I'm Sue.
And we'll see you in line.
Bye.
And of course, as Jedi Bob says, thank you, Phoenicians.
Thank you, Phoenicians. Sorry. What was...
Let's just take that out. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, Bob. We're going to pull that.